Hi there, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Class E podcast. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. This podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. This is also the podcast where we talk to entrepreneurs and innovative thinkers about their endeavors, and we share their stories with you in hopes of inspiring you. And today we welcome guest Katherine Sandoval Taylor and Heather Mckenzie Patterson, who are both Furman alumni and founders of the immersive production company Onstage Collective. Katherine and Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to start because I was, of course, looking at your all's career paths and your accolades and stuff. And both of you have been in some of my favorite operas and performances. Can you talk, and Katherine, we'll start with you. Can you talk about some of your favorite shows that you've been in?
Yeah. So, gosh, I've been so fortunate to really be able to check off a lot of bucket list roles in my career. Some of my favorites, I guess, have been Maria in West Side Story. That was a role that I was looking forward to playing my entire life. And I have played that role twice. One of those was actually in South Carolina with an opera company in South Carolina. And we rehearsed at Furman. So that was really cool. Another one of my favorite roles was from Light in the Piazza. I played Clara, and that was a really beautiful production. Another favorite stage memory of mine was I did two national jazz tours. And that was a really great experience, kind of like living the tour bus life for a while. That was fun. And I really got to kind of explore a different side of my voice that I haven't had the opportunity to perform that much with, but it was a really cool experience doing that tour. And I worked with some incredible musicians and singers that I learned a lot from. So yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Heather, what about you?
Sure. I would say that, gosh, it's been a minute since I've sung any opera, but I would say that Musetta in La Boheme was a favorite. I did that with Arbor Opera Theater up in Michigan after I finished my master's up there at Michigan State. And another role that was, I actually only completed scenes of this, but it was Sophie from Der Rosenkavalier, Strauss's opera. And that's one of my favorite operas of all time. So that was really fun. Got to revisit that a couple of times. And I would say one of my most meaningful memories was singing at Carnegie Hall, which I had done a few times. First as a chorister in high school. That was, of course, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're here on this stage, really exciting. And then I went back as a singer with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. We went there a couple times. We sang Peter Grimes, the full opera concert version of the opera there. And while we were in rehearsal for that, I was singing in the chorus, St. Louis Symphony Chorus for that. And the soprano walked out at the front, and I was like, next time I'm on this stage, I'm going to be out front in a big poofy gown as the soloist. And I even said it to a friend of mine in the chorus next to me, like, that's where I'm going to be next time. And it was one of those like manifest moments where that's what happened. So the next time I got to perform there was as a soprano soloist with a big choral orchestral work. We were singing a Schubert Mass. And I bought the big pink gown and sang at the front of the stage with one of my favorite conductors. And it was a blast. And probably the best part was just that I had a lot of friends and family come to the performance from all over the country. We had a big party afterwards. And so that was just really special to celebrate. Yeah. Like I saw my parents, in the 12th row, like, oh my gosh, freaking out. So it was really nice to have that memory with people that I love. So.
Yeah, I love the idea of manifesting that, of speaking that into existence, right? And I think that's I think a ton of artists do that, no matter what, whether the performing arts or the, different kind of art. But I think that spirit that comes with just being an artistic person kind of drives that in you, and you have to believe that, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it can be scary, I think, to even like I would call myself a recovering perfectionist. And so I would be like, if those perfectionists out there know, you don't want to even do something unless you know you're going to be awesome at it, like the best, perfect at it, right?
Yeah.
And so manifesting something like that or saying something out loud that could easily never happen, like that could easily never work out for you. I wouldn't, it's not in my nature to want to really like put it out there unless I knew for sure I could just make it happen.
Right. I don't think you're alone.
It was
a
leap of faith,
Yeah, for sure. I don't think you're alone in that. I think all entrepreneurs and innovative thinkers have that. I mean, we talk to other entrepreneurs on this podcast, and they want to get the best, most perfect product or iteration of whatever their venture is, right, out there, when in fact we should just literally just do it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Sometimes
so
Heather and I
go ahead.
Oh, sometimes Heather and I joke about the phrase that we need to implement in our lives a bit more, which is better done than perfect. Because sometimes, as Heather said, being a perfectionist, I would also lump myself into that category of recovering perfectionist. I feel like being a perfectionist can sometimes hold you back from opportunities and at least taking that first step to try. And that's important to kind of acknowledge that sometimes you do have to take that leap of faith just to maximize your potential.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. Say that phrase again. I want to make sure our listeners get that.
Better done than perfect.
Yeah, better done than perfect. That's going to be my new motto.
I guess within reason, always within reason.
Yeah, of course. Yes, absolutely. We always put our best foot forward anyway. So you guys have known each other for a long time. You were roommates here at Furman?
Yes, we were. Yes. Longer ago than I care to really say, but
so you're both vocal performance majors while you were here, and of course you both went on to get higher degrees and stuff. But was there any competition between you for roles and stuff while you were here at school?
Oh, that's so funny.
That's funny.
Well, I want to clarify that I started out as a vocal performance major, but I did change my major to a BA in voice. And that was because I wanted to double major with psychology.
Oh,
and
that's great.
At least at the time, you couldn't get like a Bachelor of Music in one thing and a Bachelor of Arts in something else. You had to get a Bachelor of Music in two things or a Bachelor of Arts in two things. And I remember the conversation sitting down with Dr. Thomas, the department chair at the time, to like deliver this news that I wanted to change my major and how was that going to affect my scholarships and was I going to be allowed to do it, And so he said, yes, of course, Heather, we will support you doing that. And so I was able to shift. And as much as I could, I tried to take like the classes that the performance majors were taking. And so it was just a matter of like, oh, I guess I'll just overload every semester that I'm here to get in all of the credits for both majors. But there were things that I didn't get to take because I wasn't a performance major, just specific classes. One of them, I think, Kat, you'll know, was it a counterpoint class that you had to take? The music theory class?
Yes.
That I didn't have to take. And by then we were roommates. And so she was just like,
I wish she would have taken it. She could have helped me. Yeah.
Yes. But to answer your question about competition, I don't think so. I never would. I'm very competitive with myself, but with the people that I love, like my ride or die BFFs, I don't want to compete with them at all. Like I want to celebrate them, and to be honest, if there was ever a time where that might happen, like, I mean, Kat, you can say if this is not true, but I would just not want to audition. Like I would just want, if I knew it was something that a best friend like Kat really wanted, like I just wouldn't want to audition for that. I would be like, her hype girl for that role rather than like out of my way, let me try,
Right.
So I don't recall that being a thing.
No, I don't. I mean, Heather and I aren't competitive with each other. And I feel like it's just kind of like a personality trait that we both share. We weren't competitive then with each other and we're not competitive now. I feel like, I feel very strongly about surrounding myself with strong, talented, passionate women. And being surrounded by strong, talented, passionate women encourages you to be better at what you do. It's not about competition. It's about lifting each other up and empowering each other and learning from each other. And that's something that Heather and I've always really respected and looked up to Heather and learned a lot from her. And I feel like that hasn't changed. We did that in college. Yep. I felt the same way then that I do now, that we empower each other and motivate each other. So no, there was never any competition between us.
Yeah, I love what you say about empowering each other and uplifting each other. And I think both of you have been teachers for close to 20 years now. What has informed, how has that experience and your performance experience informed Onstage Collective and what you're doing now?
Oh, 100%.
Well, yeah.
Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, it's such a large can of worms.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason that we began the company was out of our 2 studios. So just the background information is that, yes, we've both been teaching in different iterations for years. Then we honed our own private studios. I taught at a few universities for over 10 years, 12, 13 years, something like that. But we were both building our private studios of voice and piano. And we both think big, and we want what we put out there to be excellent. And I think it's been important to both of us to provide great opportunities for our performers, our students, to be able to do big things, big performances, big opportunities. And so before COVID, we were talking about like, where maybe if we partner up, we're in totally different cities, totally different states, but what if we brought our students together? And really Kat brought this idea to me. What if we partnered together with the students in our studio, and could we do a performance somewhere excellent that they don't have access to, and even we don't have access to on our own, but could we pool our resources, pool our students, our talent base, and make something really incredible? And that was like the first conversation. How it started was just to do something with our own 2 studios that we couldn't do on our own. Kat, would you agree with how that started?
Yes. Yeah. And it just kind of took off from there. So we were thinking big, and we took that leap of faith, like we just talked about. It was a little bit scary. And I mean, honestly, it felt impossible to think about performing. I mean, fast forward to where we ultimately decided we wanted to try to perform, which was 54 Below at Broadway's Living Room. I mean, every famous Broadway star you can think of has stood on that stage and has and behind that microphone. And so that it was a little bit intimidating and seemed out of reach. And but we're such big thinkers. It was something we wanted to try for at least. And then we surprised ourselves. And then we had all of a sudden we had a full cast of people from all over the country ready to perform with us and make this big event happen. And it kind of just like snowballed from there.
So talk a little bit about that process, and how did you already had some of the students, but did all of your students participate in that? And how did that kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, we auditioned them. So because, I know what my students sound like, but not Kat's students and vice versa. So we wanted to make it as fair as possible too, and have an outside person judge and choose who would be performing. So we brought in a panel of people, not just the 2 of us, but other music directors, to listen to all of the singers, and they didn't know whose student was, which student was coming from which studio. And so the students submitted videos of, I think, 2 full songs, and we had the panel and ourselves rank the singers and came up with kind of like, okay, our max number of singers was such and such number. And so not everyone got to go from our studios, and not everyone from our studios auditioned, but we selected people from that audition, and it was basically half and half students from Kat's studio, half from mine. Now this was pre-COVID,
right?
And I did want to back up, because when Kat mentioned the leap of faith, I feel like the first leap of faith was, I remember where I was standing we were on a call and it was like, should we just call 54 Below? Like, is that a thing? Can we just call them? Let's call them.
Yeah.
And so we did, go to the website and call the number. This was a better done than perfect situation because we didn't have anything formulated yet or planned or when or who, what. We just called, and that got the ball rolling. And I think that built the confidence because it was just a normal person on the other side of the phone who just walked us through their requirements and what it would take to be selected, to be able to perform there. And then it's just steps, one foot in front of the other, do this thing, then this thing, then this thing.
Right.
And so that first cast, I think it was like 24, 26, 28 singers, something in that number. And it's foggy because that group did not end up performing at 54 Below. And that is because our first cast was set to perform July 2020. So
yes, we
had already, yes, we all know what that means. So we had planned, and this was just the two of us putting on lots of different hats and utilizing every skill we'd ever learned or gained to audition these singers, to craft the show, to pick the music, to assign the songs to the singers, to arrange songs like over the phone. How does this chord sound for this? Can that be a trio? Like, does that voice
and you did that over
there?
the phone.
Yes.
And you did that over the phone.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Before Zoom was a thing, we were just on the phone trying to arrange songs together. And we did, and the singers learned the music. It was so exciting. And it was, I think, April 2020 that we had to go, all right, if we don't make a choice right now to postpone or cancel this production, like we'll be within the 90 days of owing all of the money that we owe to the hotel and all the things.
Right.
So we have to call it at some point. And it felt still like, oh, so optimistic, April 2020 us, or it was like, maybe by July, like this virus will just burn up in the summer heat and it'll go away.
Yeah.
And that did not happen. And so we postponed it at that point to say, okay, cast, we're gonna try to do this again, but we need to, wait. And we tried to do it the following summer, July 2021. But unfortunately, I think there was some kind of whatever strain had come out that previous winter. By December 2020, it still wasn't looking good.
Right.
And people were still worried about going. It was almost worse then. And so we decided to, at that point, sadly cancel. So we had to just end it. And that was heartbreaking, really difficult to deliver that news to the cast.
Right.
And then that was like a big shift for us, which was, okay, that's over, but we just can't give up on this dream. We've worked so hard. We've put all these pieces together. We know we can do it, but when and how. And we were watching our own students in our studios. Every performance that they were in that year got canceled. Yeah. Every graduation, every prom, all of our high school
thing after
students,
the other.
Yes, our college students, just devastating.
Yeah.
And talking to our singer friends, our teacher friends, directors, it's just obliterated. And it was so, so sad. And so then we were like, gosh, why can't we just open this up to anyone? We don't have to limit this to our own students. Everybody is just dying for a chance to perform again. Why don't we contact everyone we know, all of the choir teachers, theater directors, singers, voice teachers across the country, this network of people that we now know from our performing and teaching and grad schools and stuff, and ask them, hey, do you have students who would want to audition for this? We're going to do this. It's going to happen. And now we're opening it up to anyone and everyone. And, the first iteration was video auditions. So we could still do that, no problem.
Of course.
Yeah. And so we did. And we were able to fill 2 casts of singers and performed 2 performances in 2022, which was so satisfying. Many of the singers were still coming from our own studios. So that was especially satisfying to see them performing after all this time. Even some of them who were in that first 2021 cast that was supposed to perform, or 2020. But now with singers who Maine, California, Florida, Michigan, like all
Washington
across,
State.
Yeah,
all
the
over.
whole country.
Yeah.
Singers from all over who were just craving performing again.
Hmm.
And that was really, really nice to fulfill the dream that we had set out to accomplish, and also be fulfilling the dreams of all of these young artists. That
Right.
was just spectacular.
I think 2020 through a complete loop, and especially for those of you who started companies right before, right? But we do have a lot of entrepreneurs who really either started right before or during, and it was a great time. I will say this: it was a great time for planning and for iterating, right? Like figuring out, okay, this didn't work because obviously you guys ran into a brick wall, right? And but so many people would stop at that point, right? We failed. This is, COVID took us out, kind of thing. How did you, because I'm sure those thoughts entered your minds at some point. And Katherine, I'll start with you on this one. How did you kind of push those thoughts out and keep going?
Well, I mean, at the root of it, I feel like artists specifically, I mean, I can't speak to other entrepreneurs in different, different platforms, but artists at the heart of everything are resilient. I mean, look at Broadway artists. Broadway was probably the last group of people that went back to work.
Right.
They were out the longest.
Yeah.
But resilience, wins the race.
For sure.
So I feel like even in my own studio, I was creating opportunities for my students that were unique, and it pushed my thinking outside of the box in a really exceptional, great way that I am grateful for, because it made me think about art, performance art, and singing and acting in a different way than I ever had to. One thing that in my own studio, we started doing during COVID, and we have maintained this project to date, was I produce professional music videos for my students, and I partner with a cinematographer. We started that because of COVID, because all of our performances for the year shut down. I was on Zoom teaching all of my regular lessons. And so we decided to do these outdoor music video shoots with a cinematographer that I hired, and I directed the shoots, and every music video had a different theme and a different concept and a different aesthetic. And that was a product of COVID. And that's the resilience in artists that you see. It doesn't surprise me that there are other entrepreneurs that kind of like used the COVID time as a springboard to launch their dreams into reality, to kind of regroup, put their nose down, and think about what they wanted to do and kind of get a plan. And I feel like that's exactly what Heather and I did. We, if COVID wouldn't have happened and we would have gone on to do the performance as we planned, it would have been about 25 of our singers from each of our studios, and it would have been wonderful and it would have been great. But what happened in 2022 was phenomenal. And we were so lucky to have so many of those same singers back with us. And I was thrilled for them, but to also add other people into the mix, to give those people that we didn't know until now the same opportunity to fulfill those dreams, it's just so exciting. And it was an amazing experience for us to watch. I think especially because Heather and I are both people who love being on the stage, and we have had many opportunities to fulfill those dreams of our own, being front and center, performing on grand stages. But to give that back to not only our students, but to really any performing artist that is looking for that opportunity, it's just so fulfilling.
Yeah. And I think COVID showed us there are different ways of doing things. We don't always have to do things the conventional ways. We can work remotely or do things remotely. And I mean, you might not have had the people from St. Louis or from Washington State if you had not had that experience, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
You know what, Mary, I was trying to think back to how long Kat and I were deliberating giving up, or just not doing it when COVID hit. And I can't even remember a single conversation that we had about not moving forward, not trying again. And that's not to say that we're special. I think it's it's exactly what Kat was saying about artists being resilient.
Yeah.
It's, how many times have we auditioned for things and gotten a no? If you aren't already thick-skinned from getting rejections as a performer, maybe it would be difficult to persevere, but that's the name of the game. That's what this is like. How so many no's before you get a yes. This was just another no,
right?
That we just had to move past. And maybe it's rose-colored glasses looking backwards. I know it was really scary, and I know there was some floundering as to what does this look like next. But I just don't think we were ever ready to throw in the towel. It was just a wait and plan and ideate and come up with something better. So I'm very grateful, so grateful to have a partner and best friend forever, ride or die as my partner that just doesn't give up. No one I know, and this is just me, I'm just gonna like wax poetic here about Kat, but I don't know any person in my life who has persevered more than she has, both professionally and personally. So I look up to her. I admire her so much for that. And that encourages me to not give up and to persevere. And so it was, although so scary, I wouldn't have wanted to face it with anyone else, because I knew that she wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to give up. We're just going to, keep moving forward. And I know that not all partnerships are rosy and perfect or anything like that, and certainly we've had our conflicts and our challenges, but I think our relationship was forged at Furman in those beginning stages of really crafting who we are as people and artists, and that just built a beautiful foundation for our professional partnership. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. We've talked a lot on this podcast about, especially when you're starting out on ventures, you have to be extremely selective about who you partner with, who you hire, who are your first hires, and those kinds of things. And I think this is a prime example of, this was probably a natural partnership just because you guys have been friends for so long and you both have the same interest and the same talents and want to get to the same place and help people get there too. Right. One of the things that I was thinking about is that my students, sometimes when I give them a project or I have them pitch their projects to me, right? And then they pitch their idea and then they start throwing up roadblocks about why they might not be able to do this idea. And my comment to them is, don't place roadblocks where there aren't any, right? And so I think that's a good kind of philosophy that you guys, kind of have too, is that even though, the 2021 got shut down, that's a temporary, thing, right? And we can work around it. We can go around that roadblock, right? We've talked a little bit about the audition process and that kind of thing. What's so, I guess, impressive to you guys about the just that immersive learning that you guys promote and supply the space for your folks?
Kat, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Why don't you start, Heather? I'll jump in though.
Sure. Yeah, so that's really important to us. I think, and that comes from the fact that we have been performers and teachers. So we know in our own experience as performers that you learn by doing, and every performance you learn something. Every show that you're in, you take away things that you use in the next project, the next contract. And same with teaching. We're always learning as teachers, right? So I think that although we know how important training is and education, and what we do for a living is teach singers how to sing.
Right.
But then you really have to do the thing to gain the most from it. It's also like learning a foreign language. How do you really establish fluency in that language? By immersing yourself, by going to that country and being around people speaking that language. So it's the same with what we do. And that's what we were initially looking for our own students, was an immersive experience. These students who say, I want to go sing on Broadway. Well, have you been to Broadway? Have you walked the streets of New York City? Have you been in a New York City rehearsal space? let's go do that. Let me take you there, and you can experience that life, and you can work with Broadway stars, guest artists to impart wisdom to you, and then you can perform on that stage at 54 Below, where these other famous people have performed, and decide for yourself, is this really, do I want this more than anything? Now that I've been here, now I'm inspired to go after it and really do the work that it takes to get here for real, for real. So that's what we continue to aim for. And that's, the mission is for it to be immersive and experiential. And there are a lot of programs out there that provide classes, and you can go to even New York and do other camps and those kinds of things. And a lot of times it's classes, and they bring in maybe also Broadway stars to teach classes and to do Q&A sessions. And maybe they perform a song with these folks at the end, or, but are they the stars of the show? That's what we wanted to do. We really wanted to make our performances feature these young artists. The young artists aren't the backup singers. They're not in the background. They are on the stage. They are doing the performing. There's no...
they are the show.
They're the show.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And that's how they learn best and grow and are challenged. And we've had singers come back and do the next year's show too, because they know that they will continue to gain experience and the education of a lifetime from doing the thing. And so that's been really encouraging to see as well.
Yeah. Katherine, do you want to add anything to that? Or that was actually a pretty good answer.
Well, it's funny. Heather was talking a bit about how giving them this real life New York experience.
Yeah.
I feel like, in a way, not to say what we do the week that we're in New York is perfect and glossy, and there are no blood, sweat, and tears put in. But I will say it's kind of giving these artists a taste of the New York experience, the New York performing experience, the New York rehearsal experience, the New York Broadway experience, the tourist experience, all of those things, without moving to New York to have to, pound the pavement and go to all the auditions and get a million no's in New York City. I will tell you, getting a million no's is always difficult, but getting a million no's in New York City when you've moved there to pursue your dream is really difficult. So we're not saying that we're pushing all of those things aside and giving them this path to Broadway. But what we are giving them is an opportunity to experience all of those things for a week without having to move to New York City to try to go to a million auditions to do one performance at 54 Below.
Right.
We're giving that to them kind of in a really neat little fun, awesome package with a bow on top.
Yeah. And I always tell my students, how do you know you want to do something until you actually do it? Right. You may think you want this life, right? But you don't know until you actually do it. And you're either going to fall in love with it or decide that's not for me. Right.
Right.
And this is a great way for your students to do that without the expense of living in New York and like you say, pounding the pavement and working 3 or 4 jobs and going to auditions and classes and things like that.
And I feel like, we've had several, there are 2 people that are coming to mind that have made life shifts, career shift, school shifts based on our program. Yeah. And that is incredible to see. I know one person specifically that I'm thinking of, she was one of our original cast members. Then she came back for our first actual performance in 2022. She performed again in 2023. And after the 2022 performance, she texted me and said, I'm changing my major. I'm going to be a music major, and I've decided I have to live in this city. I have to perform here, and that is what I'm destined to do. Right. And that was amazing. I've also seen people come, that said, I'm specifically not pursuing a professional career in performing, but I will be back to perform with you every year because this is the best of both worlds. I get to live my life as an accountant, right. And then I get to come and perform in New York City, not just like in a church basement, but like on the stage of 54 Below. I mean, they're getting the best of both worlds. Yeah. And so I love to hear stories like that from either sides of that. People who are making a life shift and saying, I have to do this for the rest of my life, or people who are going to say, I'm not going to do only this for the rest of my life, but this gives me that opportunity that I would never have if I didn't do your program.
And that's important too. Absolutely. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it creates a life balance. It gives people that creative outlet. They get to hang out with people who have the same interest and work on their personal craft. I love that. So what's next for Onstage Collective?
We are excited to be opening auditions for our next New York cabaret, which is going to be next June. So the date of that performance will be June 15th. So the week leading up to that will be our immersive week in New York City. And auditions are officially open already. So, and the audition is filling out an application, attaching a photo of yourself, headshot type photo, and uploading 2 1-minute video cuts. And that's it. So we're excited about that.
They can do that at onstagecollective.com.
They can, yeah. They head to our website. Our social media handle is Onstage Collective Official, and so we always post information there as well about what's upcoming. But really excited to go back. I think one thing that really solidified this past performance, this past June in New York, was our team. So that first go around, it was just Kat and me.
That's a
wearing
lot.
all the hats, doing all of the things, and that was a fun time. But what was really special is honing our full staff. So we have an incredible music director, and an incredible production assistant, stage manager. We have found great band members to join on stage. We have an incredible photographer and videographer. And now we've got this beautiful group who work really well together, all creative, artistic, passionate, hard workers. And that's been really fun. So we're able to now continue with that same group rather than reinvent the wheel every time, which is exhausting, like any entrepreneur knows. So this feels really good to settle into our group, our staff, and it feels like, a family of sorts. And so now we know, I mean, our music director, Jeremy Jacobs, is like Johnny on the spot. He's so creative. He can do anything. Kat always jokes that whenever we ask him, hey, Jeremy, what do you think of this? Or can you do this? His answer is always, absolutely. And that's like, who doesn't love hearing that?
Right.
He's just ready for anything. He's so excellent with our cast members, both our youngest members who are as young as 13 years old, all the way through our adult members, the accountants who are coming to live out their dreams in these performances. So that's been really fun. We had a great group for this past year and hoping to continue those collaborations with those artists.
Yeah, those kind of yes men. Those kind of yes men are great.
Yes, yes men and women are wonderful to have around.
Exactly.
I would like to add, the auditions are open, and sometimes a misconception that is out there. I'm not sure how it's out there, but people kind of like select themselves out of these auditions by saying like, "Oh my God, well I'm too old. I can't do that. Like that's not for me." Or my daughter's too young. She's only 13. She can't perform in New York City. This past cast, I don't know if how old our youngest was.
14.
But, I mean, yeah, 14. So we accept cast members for the same show from ages 13 through adult. And that's something that makes a show really exciting and interesting. It's a variety of people, not only from different walks of life and different career paths and different parts of the country, but different ages and different places in their lives. And that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. What, how many folks can you take at one time? Or
it's about 25 in a cast.
Okay. All right.
It's all online. If you go to our website, onstagecollective.com, there's an auditions page that will show you what we are currently casting for, what opportunities are open, and you can click on the application there. Pretty short application. You upload a headshot, 2 videos, 1-minute cuts of 2 songs, and we accept singers on a rolling basis. So as we receive them, our panel will listen to the auditions and make casting decisions, and we'll cast them in specific types of roles, whether it's a lead role or a supporting role, that kind of thing. And once our cast is full, it's full.
All right. So before I let you guys go this afternoon, I want to have each of you give a piece of advice to a young entrepreneur in the arts. And when I use the term entrepreneur, I'm talking about not just people who have created their own businesses, right? Because I think that artists by nature are entrepreneurial in spirit because they have to go out and sell themselves, you know, to the directors and the producers and the people who are making the decisions about what roles and whatnot. So Kat, I'll start with you. Can you talk a little bit about some advice that you would give young artists and entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this question earlier. And the fact is, so I have two pieces of advice. But the fact is, when I was thinking about it, I was like, how can this advice not sound intimidating? Because the fact is, being an entrepreneur, being an artist, being a human nowadays, it's just hard. It's just really difficult.
Yeah.
So there are challenges and there are low moments. But the two pieces of advice that I would say are really important, and I think about this all the time, like probably every single day. The first thing is that you've got to have hard work, dedication, and commitment, and those things pave your path to success. There are very few exceptions and very few shortcuts to a path to success. It really comes down to hard work, dedication, and commitment. If you want anything bad enough, you have to be ready to put the work in. There are just not a lot of shortcuts. The second piece of advice that I would say, this applies to artists. When I first heard about this concept, it was about being an artist, being a singer, but I feel like it really applies to anyone, either an entrepreneur or just a person living their life. I feel like it's really important. I tell my students this all the time. It's really important to establish a small inner circle of trusted people, colleagues, artists, coaches, therapists, friends that are there for you and help you in whatever you're doing, whether it's business, whether it's artistry, whether it's just your friends. But because the fact is, everyone has an opinion, and sometimes there are just too many cooks in the kitchen, and everyone's opinion is not always helpful to you on your journey. So it's important to have those trusted inner circle of people that you can go to and say, hey, like for instance, I have a business coach. I don't get business advice from just every person on the street, but I guarantee you every person on the street has an opinion on how I should run my business. That is not useful for me on my journey. And worst case scenario, it's actually traumatizing to hear everyone's opinion about you at all times. As an artist specifically, everyone has a thought on the way your voice sounds. Everyone has a thought on your performance. And if you listen to every single person who had an opinion about your voice, or your business, or the way you're living your life, it would be traumatizing. So it's very useful for me as an artist and an entrepreneur and as a person in general to have an inner circle of people that I trust, that I know I can go to, and that their opinions are valuable to me, they matter, and they affect me. And everyone else gets a nice, very polite, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we should learn that phrase. Thank you very much. And then take what we want and leave what we want. Right.
Right.
Because I believe what you say is so true about everyone's going to give you an opinion. I don't know how many entrepreneurs I've talked to on this podcast that say that every single one of them have faced naysayers, you know, and if you face too many and you open that circle up too big, then it can be paralyzing, in fact, right?
And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be people that tell you no, or that tell you when you're making a mistake. Heather would be the first person to tell me if I was making a mistake, and I appreciate that. I don't build an inner circle based on people who are yes men or yes women. Yeah. I build my inner circle based on people that I trust and that their opinions and their advice is valuable to me.
Yeah. All right, Heather, why don't you take that question?
Yeah, I'll say that my first piece of advice, because I've got two also, goes hand in hand with that, which is after you surround yourself with that inner circle of people whose advice you trust, after that, you have to trust your gut. What do you have without your gut? You know, you have to trust your gut. So take all of that information, hone all of that down, and then believe it and trust what your gut is telling you to do. And sometimes it will go against some of the advice that you receive. And that can be really scary, but sometimes you have to do that. And the second piece of advice goes with that, which is don't be afraid to fail. So trusting your gut might mean making a mistake and having to learn from that. We have made mistakes in our business. We have hired people that didn't work out,
right,
or spent money on things that didn't bring value to our company and to our clients. And those are hard lessons, but we improve, we get better because of them. So trust your gut. And the fear is, but what if I fail? Well, what if you do? Then you're going to learn and you're going to brush yourself off and do better the next time. So that's my advice for people, for students, for college kids, for especially artists and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Ladies, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation, and I could probably talk to you all afternoon, but I know we're all busy.
Well, thank you for having
so
us.
much, Mary. Yes,
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
was really fun.
So just to remind everybody, you can get in touch with them. Just go to onstagecollective.com if you want to find out more about those auditions and the kinds of things that they're doing with their students. So that does it for this episode of the Classy Podcast. Remember, this podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. Remember, you can catch the podcast 2 ways now. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, as well as, of course, listening to wherever you listen to your podcast. But make sure that you don't miss an episode by hitting that subscribe button so you're notified when new episodes are released. This episode is produced by Communication Studies major Isabel Martinez. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Mary Sturgill. Until next time, everybody, dream big.